You're rolling.
Okay, so probably most of you already have heard a lot about this show, many of you, but I'm gonna try to talk about the process of how it came to be. So, it can be scary to let an idea out of your head. While working on the statement for this show, which is out there, that's the phrase that kept coming back to me over and over. So that's how I began my statement. Because when I began this work, it wasn't really for a show, it was just for me. I didn't think I was gonna show it. I just needed to paint these paintings and write the writing, and so that's what I did. And after I was done with each one, I just put it up on a shelf, and that's where it stayed until there were a whole pile of them. So every artist goes through their own process, and every process can be different for each body of work. And if you are an artist, you probably know this. So I'll talk a little bit about the ideas and the process that led to this show. So the previous decade, for me personally, and I think collectively, had been pretty tough. There were a lot of dark moments, and it became kind of hard to filter out the darkness, and even harder to figure out sometimes what was real, what was the truth and what wasn't, to know what was relevant, what was still relevant in life and in art. So in the process, I started working on these paintings. So before I had started working on these, I had worked before a lot with words and writing in art, and I'll show you a few things that came before this. This one, as you can see, is really about words. This one called Reigning Ruin is kind of how I felt through the whole decade that I was working on this series, a lot of this work. So with these, they really started out as writing. Then they turned into visual work, and then they all, pieces of them, became fodder for these 1-minute videos that I like to make. A lot of those were about words, and a lot of them had narration. So I never really showed this work at all. I showed the videos, but I didn't really show any of this work because it really felt just too personal and too melancholy to kind of put out there. So during and after the pandemic, I wanted to get away from screens and keyboards and really find something that was real and tangible and more enduring than all the changes we had been through. So I began to collect objects. So let me reveal some of my objects. So this is one little tray of the objects I have. I have a lot more at home. Down here, and if anyone would like to pick any of them up or handle them or look at them, you can feel free to do that. So I just started saving all kinds of things that I found on walks in nature. This is the only piece that really, which piece doesn't fit with the other pieces? But I liked it, so there it is. It's in there. So those are all the objects found on beaches, in the woods, in fields. Yeah, a little tray of shells, tiny little shells. Kind of found all over the place. So these objects really inspired me, both through their beauty and through the flaws in them. Like some of the things I really liked were things that were kind of missing pieces like this. Rotting a little bit, or feathers that had little pieces plucked out of them. So I really wasn't looking for the perfect object. I liked things that kind of showed where they had been. So I really liked them because, to me, they showed, even with all their imperfections and their flaws, they showed a kind of resilience. They had lived, they had died, they were still here. And they really showed the wear and tear and the flaws gathered through living. So late last year in the winter, and there's also more objects out in the showcase out there. So late last year in the winter, there were two events that kind of collided to be a catalyst for this particular work. And the first one was Doug and I visiting a show of Georgia O'Keeffe and Henry Moore in Boston. And that show, even though I had liked Georgia O'Keeffe's work before, that show really just hit me down deep and spoke to me. It spoke to me about her life, the way she lived, and the way she made art. And so I brought home two little souvenirs from that show. This one, both of them I keep in my studio. This one of Georgia, I just love. She's just teaching me how to become an old lady in this picture, and I love it. And then this one, which is just so simple in composition and so stark. So, that was the first thing that happened. Oh, and also, it was a show with Henry Moore also, and I had the luck of finding this piece on a beach that's very much reminiscent of Henry Moore. So, I don't even know what it is, really. Another little piece in the collection. So the next thing that happened was I'd been thinking a lot about my mother, whose birthday is New Year's Day, was New Year's Day. And she died in 2017, and she left me a lot of her art between my sisters and I, and all of her art supplies, because I was the only one who would use them. So it took me a long time, but after almost 8 years, I started really opening them up and examining what she had left me. And I was really drawn to her watercolor paint palettes, and there's one out there in the showcase. There were a few of them. And they were all set up and still had paint on them from the last time she had used them. So I was really kind of intrigued by those, but also a little bit intimidated. So the first painting that I did is actually kind of makes reference to my mother, and that's the painting that's over there, the sticks. But before I even started that, well, first of all, I should show you, since I'm talking about my mother, I brought some of her work. So this is my favorite painting of hers. I probably have 50 of her paintings at least, but this one's my favorite that I look at every day. So she could be very dark, and her paintings could be very dark. You know, sometimes I just didn't know what was going on with my mother, right? But I love this painting, it's her. And
what year was she painted that?
That's a good question. I don't know if it has a date on it. She painted it from what's on the back of it. She painted it sometime after, because of where she lived, or the address on it, after she was 65. So that could have been any time after like 1985, maybe. Yeah, I would say she might have painted it in the early 90s. Yeah. And then she could also be really playful. And these are things I had never seen before, but when I was going through her drawers and her flat files, I found, and they were actually done on the back of other paintings. So I could see she was experimenting, she was trying things out. And I just love the posture of these two figures. And I just love like all the little figures in all different colors going into the circus tents. So two sides to my mother, who I was very influenced by. So I'll leave all these up here if anyone wants to look at them later on. So I took out the supplies and started looking at them along with her artwork. And the first thing I opened before I approached the watercolors was she had a couple of sets of beautiful Sennelier pastels, like, 100 set boxes. I think she stocked up on more art supplies than she would ever use. So I started by just playing with the pastels. And I also started examining the objects that I had there and just kind of seeing where that would go. So you can see a couple of them that are familiar because the objects are in the box, and this one is also shows up in one of these paintings. So I just started playing with the pastels, but at some point I decided that the objects that I had collected were telling me that they wanted to be larger, they wanted more clarity, and they wanted to stand alone as the sole thing in the composition on each page. So that's what I started to do. So much in the way that Georgia O'Keeffe spoke to me at that show, the things that I was seeing of my mother's, her artwork and her art supplies really began to speak to me. So not having used watercolor before, I started with the pastels, and then I moved on to the watercolors. And to do that, I really examined each object for a long time. And I also had a magnifying glass of my father's, which is in the case out there. So I examined them under the magnifying glass, held them in my hands, turned them over, looked at them, just got really involved with the objects. And then I started sketching and writing. So my process is to always have these two books or two books like this going. And one of the books is pretty much for writing. So you can see this is all, there are sketches in it, just some starting on some ideas, but mostly it's writing. And then the other book is where I started doing some small drawings that would later, not all of them made it into the paintings, and some of them did and are not here, but I just started finding things in nature to paint, to try to use the watercolors and see what they would be like. A few of those, some bones that was a small little piece, and my cat sort of ate it and destroyed it. So that never made it to a larger painting. But then the shells, I started painting those. You can see a lot of the things I worked out pretty carefully. And the other thing I really liked to do in here was to think about color. So I've done a lot of color swatches, and even while I was working on things, I do these color swatches. So I was just trying to really figure it out, learn about watercolor since I had never used it. So these two books were a big part of the process. So as I started painting and started painting them larger, they really started telling me stories about what they wanted to be. And not being a watercolorist, I just had to go with that. I just had to go with what they were telling me, how detailed to make them, what color was in them, just looking, observing, and just kind of letting them speak to me. And as I painted and drew each one, everything that I wrote that's on the walls next to them is what I got out of that experience, what came to me out of that experience. And I can't really explain that in any more detail, other than that's just what came out and what was appropriate for that painting. But I realized after I got the whole series done, and they're all in chronological order, right to the last one. And this one actually, there's a lot in the process that happens in retrospect. You don't know it when you're making things. But while that one's about my mother and the one right at the end is about Georgia O'Keeffe, I realized that this one is a self-portrait. So I feel very happy to be like having my mother and Georgia O'Keeffe in my self-portrait. So anyway, they told me their stories. I wrote them down. And this work, you probably notice, is very different from other things that I've done before. And as I mentioned, I had no intention of showing it. So when you look at it, you're gonna see there's like splashes of paint in some places. There could be cat footprints on some of them. There's erasures, there's, you know, things like this that branch was there and then it broke off before I finished the painting, but I left what was there, what had been there. So they're not perfect, like the objects, they're flawed. And to me that's okay, because they're part of the process, that's part of the process. So I left, you know, any flaws in them, it stayed. So then the opportunity for a residency through Merrymeeting Adult Education came about and was offered to me, and that included an exhibition. So then I started to, that was probably about, you know, I had some of these, I had been painting some of these not knowing what I was gonna do with them. And then it's like, oh, I'm gonna have an exhibition. So I kept going on the series, pulled the show together, typed up all the writing, and put them all in order. So if you look at them chronologically, you can really see the process. And the last piece kind of sums it up, the writing that I did there. And part of it, and it does refer to Georgia O'Keeffe, and it sums up where the process led, saying everything can mean anything. What does what you see mean to you? Myself, when I look closely, I see the dignity and beauty of life lived. That means everything to me. So this body of work helped me to find clarity in the midst of chaos. And I want to be able to share that clarity with you. So I welcome you to walk around, take a look, read. And if you have any questions, you can ask. And eat popcorn and drink cider. Enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you want to look at anything, you know, just touch, look, yeah.
Ruthanne, why did you exclude the branch that broke off?
Why did I exclude it?
Yeah.
Because I no longer had it. It was taken away by cats.
Okay.
Cats. Cats. That's probably how it got broken off too. So I didn't really have it to look at. I knew that it was there because I had sketched it in the original sketch, but it was gone. So I couldn't really, I didn't want to make it up. Yeah.
Are you still working on this series with these watercolors and themes?
No, that was the last one. And actually, one of my goals was I had this pad of watercolor paper that I bought when I was in Boston at the Georgia O'Keeffe show. And I wanted to do a painting on every single one of those sheets. Right, so I really consider this series done, but now I'm interested in continuing working with these objects, but doing something where, how could I describe this? Almost like a Mark Rothko background with an object on it. I want to start thinking more about the painterly background and the colors there. So,
Do you think you'll still keep working in watercolor?
yeah, I think I will. I really liked it a lot. Yeah.
How do you see that as a self-portrait?
Well, I'll read what I wrote. It says, I see hips, it's called the Modigliani tree. I see hips, I see feathers, I see scars, tough bark, scarred. I look up and see a tough stance that says, I'm here, I am here. And it's just, I think it has to do with getting older
Mhm.
and, you know, like this piece, well, this piece is here. And it's got all this like stuff that just is gathered all over it, and it's, you know, parts of it are kind of peeling off and falling apart, but it's here, it's got a presence,
Mhm.
so that's me.
Wait a second, you said you're falling apart?
Well, yeah, sometimes, yeah. Yes, I planted some bulbs yesterday, and I can guarantee you I'm falling apart.
When you're working in watercolors, how much of it do you sketch out ahead of time? It's just of the broad strokes, or you get really detailed?
I sketch out very little, yeah. So basically, if I have, like, in this book, so I'll have the object in front of me that I wanna draw, and so this one, for instance, I have the object which is out there in front of me with the magnifying glass. I have this that I've drawn in my process book here. And then I kind of use measuring and numbers to figure out how I'm gonna lay this out on the paper. So I measure everything. It's really like, probably like, it is the least intuitive part of any of this. And then I just make dots on the paper where there's certain, like I might make a dot there, I'll make a dot there and say, okay, that's my widest area. Then, you know, maybe I'll make a dot here and a dot there. And then after, you know, very, very little, and then I start to paint, yeah. So very little drawing.
Oh, so not like a full grid like graph paper?
No, just measuring. Yeah. Just little marks that I can see, yeah.
I think I'm gonna use that around the house now. Put little marks here, little marks here, that's where my wallet is, that's where my phone is.
Make sure they're like bright neon green or something.
Do you have any other plans for this show after this one?
Bill Stanton from Cathant's Gallery asked if I wanted to put some of them in there, so I'll probably do that.
Great.
And really what I wanna do with some of this show is use it to try to apply for residencies, which, you know, that would be a great way to get a vacation and some painting time. So I figured if, you know, I did this one, I can do another one. So, but I don't know, yeah, I really like to show it more, cause
It's
I really like it, yeah, I think it says what I wanna say.
The other weekend you mentioned you were thinking maybe of a book,
A book,
and so
yeah,
not only the
yes,
paintings, then the text,
yeah,
but then the story you
yeah,
were telling. I mean, almost like as an intro, like maybe with illustrating some of the things you're talking about, then getting into, I mean, this evening is a book,
yeah,
you know, it is.
I would
It's
love
like-
to do a
And
book.
when you said, you know, some of the paintings at the Cathant's Gallery, it's like, that's too bad. What about like all the paintings? You know, it's like,
Yeah,
so,
it really
and
is
this is,
one thing, yeah,
so anyway, I would encourage, since you put everything together, before it all flies away, think about, you know, somehow documenting what you've said and what the results were.
That's a really good idea, yeah. Yeah, I kinda hate to see parts of it fly away, but yeah, a book, I've got photographs of everything before I framed it, so. I don't know anything about writing a book.
But it's, a lot of it's written here,
Yes,
and maybe the rest of it is done,
It's on
captured out
there.
here,
yeah,
which transcribe that,
mhm.
so you don't have to maybe think about it.
Yeah,
Yeah, very good. It's
Now,
already done, you're just gonna put it on the page.
yeah, I like that idea, I do, yeah.
I have the honor of living with Ruthanne, and I know for a certain fact that she doesn't know what she's going to do next, and she likes it that way.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know if other people who make art do this, but sometimes after finishing a big body of work, I like to just play, like, just, you know, make things that are, they may turn into something, they may not.
And what did you make the other day with the newspaper and the printing?
Oh, I took all these, images out of a clothing catalog that I get that has like really high quality paper and nice colors in it, but it has all clothes that I probably really don't want and can't afford anyway. And I printed on all of them, like with like different images, like I did like mono printing, like where you draw on a plate and then print on it. So I printed on all of them and then I sewed them all together like a great big piece of fabric. And I'm gonna cut it apart and make a dress out of it. And it's gonna be called my homemade dress since I can't afford the clothes in the catalog.
Wow.
Don't smoke around you, that's all.
Yeah, well, paper dresses in the 1960s, didn't they have those?
Did they really?
Yeah, they did, yeah. I don't know, they never really took off, but they had
The problem is that it was too easy to take off.
That's wrong with.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. So that's the kind of play that I've been doing, yeah.
And how long, how many days or weeks or months?
That one was made in January and this one was made in September.
Would
So
you say it was about 1 month, that, or did some of them come together faster?
some months, yeah, like March and February were pretty productive. April was very productive. There's none at all in June because we were traveling.
Mm-hmm.
And then July and August, pretty productive. And then I finished with one in September as I was getting ready to do the show.
See, now I'm thinking, what about an exhibit, both your and Doug's work in 2025? What a sensational contrast. If we did it like month by month, then make a book out of that. I mean, it's like,
That would be pretty
when I think
interesting.
of what
Yeah.
I've seen of Doug's obsessions this year, and it's,
Doug
this is
not
done in
liking
the,
that.
this is done in the same house.
Doug's
Yeah.
not liking that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's done in the same house and often during the day we'll go back and forth and see what the other one is doing, yeah.
And then have these long rambling conversations about Cezanne, Picasso, and the abstract expressionists.
How big is the reference for that piece in the corner?
This piece here, this
Yeah.
one, that one, it's out in the showcase out there, it's probably it's probably I would say
Okay.
3/4 of this size maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, 3/4. Yeah, some of the things are very tiny and then others, like the first one I did, I think those are the actual size of those sticks.
Mm.
But then others, like the one next to it, that bone is really tiny. It's in here, it might be up there.
It's hazardous to go for a
This
walk in the
little
woods
piece is
with
really
that.
tiny. So that, that really got scaled up quite a bit. It's amazing what you can see with a magnifying glass. And so, then some of the things I no longer have, like things like this and this, they just, eventually
Become cat toys.
fell apart. So anyway, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a look around if you want. Have some cider.